We have 120 leaders, senior leaders from business, from government and public service here. It's a T20, G20 event. Insights that are shared today will be captured, recorded and translated for the G20 plenary summit in November, Johannesburg.
Please put your hands together for Ms. Pascale Yev, sponsored by Adcorp, for the third panel, From Uncertainty to Opportunity, Rethinking Workforce Design for Tomorrow's Demands. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Pascale Yev.
Thank you very much for that incredible introduction. I had to look behind me to make sure it was me they were talking about. But thank you for the privilege of being a part of this important conversation. We've received very valuable input from leaders on this platform, shedding light into the great and impactful efforts being made to tackle unemployment and secure the future of our youth and country at large. It's fair to say a round of applause to our organizing team, to Dr. Nick and all the partners. Come on, give it up for them. Now, the global workforce landscape is being reshaped by economic uncertainty, rapid technological change, and complex legislation. Traditional employment models are giving way to more agile, tech-enabled approaches. In South Africa, the BPO sector, worth $5.2 billion, continues to support economic growth but faces disruption from automation and rising client expectations. Worldwide, the outsourcing market is projected to hit $5.6 trillion by 2027, with IT services and BPO comprising 72% of that value. AI, the famous word we hear all the time, is set to redefine operations across sectors, with up to 40% of tasks in South Africa's tech outsourcing space potentially impacted by 2030. This highlights the urgent need for upskilling and workforce transformation. Flexible work is also gaining ground. South Africa's participation in the online gig economy has grown by 9% in 5 years, though it still captures just 0.17% of the global market. Meanwhile, AI adoption is proving beneficial, boosting efficiency by up to 60% and cutting operational costs by 30 to 40%. Nearly 2/3 of IT outsourcing firms now use AI for cybersecurity and client services. As businesses confront these multifaceted challenges, the opportunity lies in reimagining workforce designs. By integrating AI, adopting flexible staffing models, and aligning procurement strategies with evolving market dynamics, organizations can transform uncertainty into a strategic advantage, positioning themselves for sustainable growth in the future of work. Now, in this panel session, we will explore the theme From Uncertainty to Opportunity, Rethinking Workforce Design for Tomorrow's Demand. And on this panel, I'm privileged to have on stage, join me as I call them up, Natasha Parmanand, who is Managing Director of Staffing Solutions at Adcorp. If you wouldn't mind joining me. Give it up for Natasha. Natasha is an accomplished, admitted attorney with over 2 decades of expertise in legal and operations management. She is Managing Director of Staffing Solutions at Adcorp Group, overseeing Sub-Saharan Africa, where she leads the group's efforts in providing scalable, workable workforce solutions for non-core and operational functions. She brings a wealth of experience in business solutioning, finance and logistics sectors, demonstrating astute leadership and strategic acumen to ensure revenue and operational excellence. With a robust educational background, here we go, sit tight, it's a long one, including an LLB, Masters in Law, Advanced Certificate in Taxation, Diploma in International Business and Finance from the University of Liverpool, a Certificate in Financial Markets from Harvard, an International Executive Development Program from Vanderbilt University, and an International Executive Development Program for Women from Gordon Institute of Business Science. Natasha's combined theoretical prowess with practical expertise to ensure informed decision-making, agile operations, sustainable revenue, and effective corporate governance while driving profitable revenue and accelerated growth for not just the business, but her team members. Natasha's current role, coupled with a tenure at FedEx and experience in the pharmaceutical, auditing, and technology sectors, underscores her ability to navigate complex regulatory landscapes, drive operational excellence, foster sustainable growth across diverse markets, and engage stakeholders effectively. Apart from her professional accolades, Natasha was Standard Bank's top businesswoman in 2020. Businesswoman of the Year 2023 Female Founders in association with the United Nations Women, CEO Magazine's Most Influential Women in Business and Profession in 2019 and 2020, winner of the FedEx prestigious 5-Star Awards in 2017 and 2023, and in addition to the latter, Natasha has featured in a number of publications and media news interviews. Let's give it up for Natasha. Up next, Sibonakaliso Shabangu, who is Director for Global Business Services and Human Resources at BASF in the market area of Africa. He is a seasoned global business executive with 15 plus years of experience in supply chain, human capital, and business operations. Currently serving as the Director for Global Business Services and Human Resources at BASF, where he aligns HR strategies and operational functions to support business growth and deliver exceptional services. He is known for his visionary leadership, commitment to continuous learning, and dedication to fostering a high-performance culture through innovation and strategic expansion. He is passionate about integrating HR and service functions to enhance efficiencies and productivity using technology-driven solutions and process optimization. With a background in senior management positions across various business functions, including procurement and supply chain management, he has received multiple regional and international business excellence awards for his commitment to driving impactful change and achieving outstanding results. Let's give it up. And last but not least, we will call up Bruce Turin, who is the Managing Director of Adcorp's blue-collar contingent staffing and training brands. With 28 years of experience in the workforce solutions industry, Bruce has led across the full spectrum of workforce models and is deeply committed to their evolution, particularly within the South African context. Bruce holds a degree in social sciences from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and his academic foundation has fueled a lifelong passion for people development. He is especially driven by the impact of meaningful work and skills development in shaping lives and communities. Let's give it up for Bruce. Before we dive into our panel session, we will showcase a video, so turn your eyes to the screens.
Success demands new skills and new ways of working. At Adcorp, we don't just keep up, we lead. This year, we proudly celebrate 50 years of shaping the world of work. As a trusted partner to businesses and communities, we enable agile, focused, and skilled workforces for the future. Today, we connect people to jobs that build more agile and efficient workforces, helping businesses grow smarter and faster. With a strong footprint across South Africa, the rest of Africa, and Australia, we're making a meaningful impact, changing lives and shifting family trajectories every single day. At the heart of Adcorp's success are our specialist brands, each uniquely positioned to serve a specific segment of the workforce. Together, they form 3 core divisions, offering a complete workforce lifecycle solution from entry-level staffing to executive search, project-based delivery, and workforce development. Under contingent staffing, by delivering scalable, on-demand workforce solutions that support agility, growth, and inclusive job creation. As South Africa's largest provider of blue-collar staffing, we deploy job-ready teams across sectors like hospitality, logistics, and high-volume operations, helping businesses stay responsive in a rapidly changing world. We also play a key role in upskilling workers and creating pathways into meaningful employment, contributing to national goals for workforce development and youth empowerment. Adcorp Contingent Staffing, powering people, empowering progress. At Adcorp Staffing Solutions, we don't just fill roles, we power your operations. From FMCG to financial services, from warehousing to telecommunications, we've done it all. By outsourcing your non-core activities to us, whether it's contact centers, managed services, or operational support, you stay focused on what matters most, your core business. With a proven track record and industry expertise, we partner with you to drive operational excellence, enhancing efficiency, productivity, and service delivery. Adcorp's professional services division continues to play a vital role in shaping the future of work. We partner with organizations to deliver high-impact white-collar recruitment solutions, connecting businesses with top-tier talent across executive, IT, healthcare, and professional services sectors. From permanent placements to project-based hiring, we meet the evolving needs of organizations through tailored, scalable solutions. Our recruitment process outsourcing services are built to streamline high-volume or complex recruitment projects, reducing time to hire, improving quality, and allowing businesses to focus on their core operations. Through our managed services provider offering, we provide end-to-end workforce management, helping businesses optimize their contingent workforce, gain visibility, ensure compliance, and improve operational efficiency. Backed by decades of industry expertise and a deep understanding of future workforce trends, we help organizations stay resilient, competitive, and future-ready. At Adcorp, we don't just source professionals, we help build the teams that innovate, lead, and transform. For 50 years, Adcorp has been at the forefront of workforce solutions, enabling agile, focused, and skilled teams that power the future of work. We don't just fill roles, we enable progress, opportunity, and growth for businesses and people alike. Visit adcorpgroup.com to learn more.
Fantastic. Now, to kick off our conversation, can you paint a picture for us of what's currently happening with workforce design and its changing landscape? Perhaps Bruce can talk about it a little bit from the blue-collar side, and then Natasha, you can continue with the conversation.
Yeah, so thanks, Pascal. It's very interesting. I was listening to some of the speakers earlier, talking about applied skills versus skills that they may be receiving in tertiary institutions, etc. And we have a very similar viewpoint in respect of the other end of the table, which is our customer market, our client market, and what is relevant in their world. We live probably broadly in reasonable economic uncertainty. And the demands of business in the context of economic uncertainty broadly can be defined as requiring flexibility, requiring variable costs, etc. So, Pascal, what we're seeing is that historically what people considered the job of their choice, the employment contract type of their choice, is changing. There are multiple workforce models that are necessary to fit into the commercial world, which requires flexibility, which lives in uncertain times, which is in a very rapid state of change in respect to technology. So we have to also find a mindset, and someone mentioned that earlier, I thought it was fantastic, of people entering the workforce or that are in the workplace of continuous development and of what is work to that individual. What does it look like? What does that job look like? And I suppose that's what we can share with the audience today.
Fantastic.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce. I think before I even get to, do I need this? I think I'm loud enough. Okay.
You need it.
I'll keep it. Generally, I'm really loud. I don't need a mic. But okay, Pascal, since you're moderating. I think even before we get into the evolution or how the workforce landscape is changing, I think one of the important narratives that we need to always keep at the forefront, and I've heard it from the onset today. We talk about employment, and we talk about companies and upskilling and bringing people along the journey. But what we tend to forget one, as a community, two, as corporates, and I think three, as a collective, is the blue-collar workforce, or a workforce that cannot get tertiary education, cannot finish school. Not because of lack of opportunities, but just because they cannot. Affordability. I mean, let's be real. Affordability is the number one driver as to why we sit either with an unemployment rate is sitting in the 60s, right, or in the 40s, but almost 50 to 60% of that sits with unemployed youth. You know, one could be opportunities, but in opportunities, a large portion of that sits with affordability. So we need to make sure we don't forget those who cannot have mainstream education and get into mainstream economy along this journey of progress and evolution. You know, we talk about technological transformation. We talk about AI. We talk about platforms. But we have a large majority of our age demographics where it's too late for us to take them on that journey. And we need to make sure that somewhere along the line, we balance taking our population into an economy, actively, an active, earning economy, which is corporates, which is giving them the ability to leverage themselves, but also balancing, giving opportunities to those that may not necessarily be following the same channels. So going back to the question, so I just want to paint that landscape when we talk about, how the workforce is transforming. So we need to keep those two narratives at play when we put our heads together, when we collaborate, when we brainstorm, because it is important. Before we always said, let's not forget the marginalized as we go on a journey of progress. Let's not forget those that cannot get into mainstream, cannot be in your mid and top tier earning brackets. Bruce spoke about blue collar. It's almost a taboo word. Temporary labor. It's almost a taboo word. But the reality of it is, without a temporary labor workforce, your FMCGs, your retails, your automotive almost become defunct, because it is important to ensure that you have different workforce solutions that work for a certain organization, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. Now, if you cast your mind, Bruce, help me here, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years ago, you had a huge temporary labor workforce. But if you 10 years ago went into the first world countries like your US, like your Europes, even Asia, your more advanced countries in Asia, you would find something called, and Bruce actually upskilled me on this, vested outsourcing, but we call it functional outsourcing. It was well embraced. South Africa did not embrace it. It was either you are a permanent employee or you had temporary workforce. What we're finding is, because the global economic climate is changing and the cost pressures as well as operational pressures are coming top down, businesses are forced to re-engineer their thinking. So moving away from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset and being open to different ways of doing things. And one of those different things is actually looking at saying, this is my production environment. I need to focus on production. I need to focus on core. How do I now diversify from permanentization, from a blue-collar environment, to someone looking after my non-core, but also being output-driven? So it's not about putting bums on seats. It's not about putting people. It's about you, Mr. Third Party, you owning this part of the operations. You will have an SLA. You will have a KPI. When I look at you, you will not be different to the rest of my core team. So what we're finding is, you're finding almost a landscape that's continuously evolving. And one organization will say, this is what I want, but it's based on these short-term, medium, and long-term goals. And suffice to say, as much as we think we have short-term, medium, and long-term goals, it doesn't exist, with what's happening in Ukraine and Russia that created turmoil about 2-3 years ago. Then you have India and Pakistan almost at war, and then you have the US. So it's almost like across the globe. You know, you sit down, you put pen to paper, you got a 1, 3, and 5 year plan, and then today he's like, okay, my 1 year plan has now become a 30-day plan, which may not be 30 days, because somewhere along the line, something's going to impact that global economic, right? So we're living in a very volatile environment that forces us to be agile and think outside the normal way that we think. And that's why it's important that we start thinking about, without the stigma of how do we embrace the different facets of solutions, workforce solutions? How do we bring it together? How does it work for you as an organization? Because at the end of the day, it's important for organizations to drive efficiencies, right? Because if you bring in efficiencies, it automatically filters down into a revenue, into a productivity, and a service metric achievement. And that all flows back.
Very interesting reality and picture you painted there. Sibo, from your end, what's that like, being in HR in a multinational organization? What does that landscape look like, functioning, operating in South Africa?
Good afternoon. I think from our side, one of the things that are quite clear is that uncertainty is a factor that is here to stay. And that is a factor that we need to be able to navigate through it. So what does it mean? It means that as we constantly plan, we need to be able to have the mindset of how do we pivot. And the biggest focus is really not about jobs. It's not about the title of the roles, but it's about what are the activities that needs to be executed and what skills are required to execute those activities. So how do we actually move around it is that we start to look at especially some of the functionings that are non-core for us, but that are essentially from a services perspective to look at an aspect of variable costing models, whereby when we are doing the sourcing of skills, we are actually then moving away from looking at people from a permanent perspective, but looking at them as coming in as consultants to be able to deliver the work because they're experts in what they need to be able to do. And they're an extension of our work. So that's the one aspect. The other aspect, obviously, is that with artificial intelligence, there is a better creation of the gig, I will call it sort of a gig economy, where people are able to actually look at saying what kind of efficiencies they can be able to bring for us and that they can be able to drive for us. And that is really one of the landscapes that we are looking at. However, what is very critical in this moment is the aspect of diversity and inclusion. Because diversity and inclusion brings a lot of what I call is a diverse mindset into the organization. So when you get people from different perspectives, from different backgrounds coming in, but also because of globalization, the world has shrunk. So what we normally do sometimes is that, obviously, without creating permanent tax impediments, we're looking at saying who are different people in different regions within Africa, in other countries, that have certain skills that can be able to virtually work and contribute to certain projects in other parts of the world without them having to travel to those parts of the world. So those are some of the things that we are actually doing to ensure that we can be able to think about how do we navigate through this uncertainty for the future.
Very interesting. So uncertainty is a factor that's here to stay. So let's not bother trying to throw that out the window. I'd like to know, in the recent Future of Jobs reports, the World Economic Forum estimates that 22% of today's jobs will be disrupted by the year 2030. Do we as a country have what it takes to manage this shift in South Africa? And how sustainable are our current workforce solutions? Bruce?
Yeah, it's a big question, Pascal. Are we ready? No. Are we starting to adopt the technologies? Yes. Will jobs completely disappear? I don't believe so. We see it happening already. Jobs will be reinforced with the concept of AI, freeing up time for someone to deepen relationship, to deepen solution creation in clients. Will some jobs become redundant? Yes, but will a job evolve as a consequence of that? Yes. Are we seeing the skills coming out of our training institutions delivering that sort of agility from a mindset point of view? No. Those are things that we've got to work on. I want to use an example in some of our businesses now. As opposed to recruiting for skill, we recruit for mindset and personality traits that we believe will deliver a future outcome in terms of agility, in terms of focus, in terms of being able to adapt to change. And those are becoming the more critical skill sets. I think Andrew Musi spoke about it earlier. Those are very real elements that are evolving. So there's no predictability yet. There's no predictable future in respect to the market. These jobs are changing. Can we manage it? Yes, we can. Are we doing enough? No, we're not. If you haven't started to consider how AI is going to implement or impact your organization, you are too late to the party. Your competitor is doing it, and they will create the process efficiency to become more cost effective for your customer. You have to embrace it, and then at exactly the same time, who are the people that you've got in the organization with a change mindset, adopting it and moving your solutioning and moving your relationship sort of quotient with your customers forward? And those are some of the areas that we see evolving in the different spheres that we operate currently.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Bruce says, I mean, if, Pascal, to what you said, right? I'm a lawyer. Me and Pascal said that. If you look at 15 years ago, occupations that were in demand, doctors, lawyers, accountants, IT professionals. Fast forward, World Economic Forum released a report. We're not looking for skills. We're not looking for lawyers. We're not looking for doctors. In fact, one of the first AI tools that came out was in the medical field to actually do a diagnosis of blood tests, right? And it came out years ago, believe it or not, years ago. And as time went on, obviously with large language modules and with, you know, the progress that AI was making, input in, output out, depends on, you know, garbage in, garbage out, right? So let's get the garbage as refined as possible that it's actually not garbage anymore. But one of the first AI tools that came out was actually built to do the diagnosis for doctors. So when a doctor gets a blood report, instead of him having to go to books and doing research, feeds this thing into the AI tool, that gives it a prelim, he does a quick checks the veracity of it, boom, it's out. So AI is here to stay. What it's doing is it's a paradigm shift of what was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, to what is needed now from a skills perspective. Now they don't talk about qualifications. The World Economic Forum is not when they talk about jobs, and the job report that's come out, they don't talk about jobs. They talk about, we are looking for people. These are the top 10 skills that we need. Critical thinking. It was a 101 course, a small module when you were doing a degree, and you probably just chucked it in. Data analytics, thought processing. I mean, I'm going to give away my age, right? But that stuff was fluff years ago. Now it's top of mind. So AI is here to stay. But I do think it's important. There's two things I want to bring to the fore. One is, while we all talk about AI, we need to be very conscious that AI is not here to replace humans. AI is here to coexist. It's here to increase productivity and efficiency. So research, for example, if someone is tasked with research and analysis, that's been reduced by 50% of the time, which then means that you have an employee or a member on your team that has 50% more capacity to do something else. But again, AI is based on, it's a machine that's taught, right? So you're going to need the human intervention. And while we have our employees embracing it, because they don't get stuck with these mundane tasks of having to trawl through books and articles and online journals and et cetera, and heaps of data. Push it into the tool, it comes out. And they're really happy. And they know we're on this evolution. But there's also a sense of angst with our employees, because there isn't a full sense of appreciation of the certainty of their jobs. And that's a reality. And unfortunately, we don't even have the answer for that because it's so moving, right? It's continuously moving. It's so dynamic. There isn't any guarantees and there's no answer to it. If you look at, from a legislative perspective, the EU, the US, China, Australia have legislation governing AI. But again, it's still in its very nascent stages, right? Because they actually can't peg anything down because it's moving parts. Is South Africa ready? No. But then again, is the world ready? You know, so we always bring it back home, and again, someone mentioned it, we are our own worst enemies. You know, so no, we're not ready. And I don't think we have a full understanding of it because nobody does. So while we may not be ready for it, I don't think the world's ready. It's just it's a question of degree, right? But it's also about embracing it. And again, like Bruce said, if you don't have it, you're going to be left behind. So embrace it and use it in your organization to best suit you, because that is going to give you the differentiator that you need. And it's fundamental to have that growth mindset that says we are in a time of change.
Thank you for that, Natasha. Sibo, your thoughts on this? How will the job disruptions, are we ready as a nation to face this shift?
I will probably say, I don't think there's any country in the world that is clearly ready for it. However, there's something that as humans we have that AI will not have. Yeah? That is emotional intelligence. Yeah? And the aspect of us being able to have a sense when you can smell the room. Yeah? You can be able to have foresight. And we've got certain senses that AI does not have. And I think a combination of AI in terms of really dealing with all the quantitative aspect of analysis, but also the human element in terms of judgment, the human element in terms of bringing different aspects and understanding the landscape in terms of what you are dealing with. But also, we must also remember that as we are in business, people are working with people. And it's also about relationships in terms of how you are able to build those particular relationships. So I think what is important for us is to be able to find a way that we are able to coexist with AI. And at the same time as well is that we have to be able to embrace what it brings, as we are seeing that some of this technology will get integrated, as you can see different tools. I mean, now you can work with Copilot, ChatGPT, this and that. That helps you to have more time to actually be thinking about what is it that my customer need, and then to spend the time to visit the customer if you're on the front end of the business. But also if you're in the back end of the business, you're spending more time to say, where can I drive more efficiencies so that the cost base can decrease so that we can be able to make more margins. So for me, I think it's not necessarily the question of readiness, but it's a question of adaptability. How fast can we be able to adapt in coexisting between humans and AI to ensure that we can be able to create more opportunities, we can be able to create an environment that is conducive for business to exist, but at the same time as well that we should not forget about the social impact that it has and the responsibilities that as organizations that we have, especially in the areas in terms of the license to operate, in terms of where we're operating.
Pascal, I just want to add something to what Sibo said. I think it also forces us, and I think this is quite important, it forces us to move away from the whole fixed mindset to a growth mindset. It forces us to start thinking innovatively about how do we coexist and how do we actually sweat our assets, So from an AI perspective, how do we get the best out of it while still ensuring we get the best out of our people?
Very interesting comment. I want to go back a little bit to, Bruce, something you said about variable costs and employing multiple workforce models. What would it look like to move from the fixed model, cost model, to the variable cost model? Are we advocating for a complete shift, or is this gradual? Is this a new way forward, or is it integrated?
So I'm going to share what I'm seeing. The first thing I want to share is that I think we still have this mindset, specifically within South Africa, about the negative context of the various types of workforce types. but there's a reality in terms of the customer interface, in terms of their supply and demand cycles and what their sort of economic certainty looks like. So what do we see? Permanent recruitment, permanent placement is 100% a very important part of any organization's strategic design in respect of workforce. But what we're seeing is that is limited to the very core IP components of a customer's total landscape. We are seeing supply and demand flexibility during any 12-month cycle, and we're seeing a lot of that being managed through this concept of contingent staffing. Not negative, our legislation supports equal treatment. So there's a joint and several liability responsibility, there's an equal treatment responsibility, but it's a factor per hour as opposed to long-term employment. We're seeing customers saying our IP is critical, that's what we need to look after. We have functions within our business that have become fat in respect of cost. Can we outsource that entire function, what Natasha would refer to as non-core, to an organization that's going to create a core responsibility out of it? Can I pack faster? Can I manage that contact center better? Can I collect your cash faster than you can? Because it becomes a core focus for the outsourced operation. And I mean, that's through the spectrum of blue collar and white collar segments of the economy. The world is this small at the moment. Can I project manage or procure on a project basis through a gig economy kind of environment? These things are happening every day. I mean, I was very interested in the SAP ETE concept, but I mean, there's another concept evolving which considers Africa, South Africa included, as the breadbasket of employees for the rest of the world that are suffering this concept of what they call full employment. So as soon as a country hits 80% of its community working, that is considered full employment. They battle to find skills. There's this evolution of kids qualifying within Africa that are benchmarked against an international standard and that become available to international companies as resources to deploy. So, you know, the point that I'm making, Pascal, is that the economy will determine what the jobs of the future look like. We have to be prepared to accept those changes and to make sure that we embrace all those different elements from a positive mindset point of view, from a commercial outcome point of view, from a longevity and sustainability point of view, all things considered in terms of our own country's sort of issues from a transformation objective point of view, etc. But we can't ignore the fact of what is coming down the line. So it's a very exciting space. Our employees and future employees need to understand that the world of work is not going to look like it looked when our parents accessed the workforce. And secondly, as organizations, we need to embrace the changing nature that we see coming down the line and make sure that we model to the most effective, most efficient, most ethical sort of principles that we can through the different dynamics that we are seeing.
I'm mindful of time, but in closing comments and just considering some actionable next steps, can we talk about how we incorporate AI into our organizations and the future workforce, just in closing? Sbu?
Yeah, I think for me, if you're an organization, you've not already incorporated it, you're extremely late, right? So I think you incorporate it in many aspects. One, it is through your training programs that you have across your employees. But secondly, it is also in the tools of trade that your employees have in terms of how they are able to function and do the work that they need to do. But lastly, it is also around the mindset shift in terms of how, as an organization, you speak about it. So yeah, that would be my contribution.
Thank you. Natasha?
I'm going to give Bruce.
Yeah, you know, everyone I think gets scared by this term AI. I want to bring it back to our very own organization and not even the customers that we service. Where have we introduced it? We've introduced it into processes. Can we manage the transition from an invoice being generated to cash being collected faster using AI? Absolutely we can. What does it mean? It means that our credit controllers spend more time on relationship with customer than on fighting with them around processing. The point that I'm making is that AI is not all-encompassing across a total organization. You introduce little bits at a time to help you with process efficiencies, and you start to get adaptation from an employee-based perspective, and then the sort of impetus is gained in the organization, and you start to roll with bigger pieces. So my recommendation through our own experience is You have to get adoption by your people. To get adoption by your people, you need to start in small bite-sized chunks, and then you start to evolve through different departments, and it ultimately becomes a way of working as opposed to this massive change that needs to take place.
Thank you very much. Natasha.
Thanks, Pascal. So my colleagues have spoken about workforce. They've spoken about incorporating AI into an organization. I'm going to take it from a different angle in closing. We speak about it as a degree. We speak about it as a learning journey. We speak about corporates exposing us as employees to AI. But I think, the train has left the station. And it actually needs to start at home. We need to start exposing our kids to non-traditional way of thinking. And we need to expose our kids to what is technology looking like today. Because when we tell them what it looks like today, they're already thinking about what it's looking like tomorrow. And it's important that we get them on this journey as quickly as possible. And it's going to start from there. Right now, we're fighting with, are the universities quick enough to bring it into syllabus? Are the universities quick enough to get our guys that are already in degrees upskilled on technology and AI? And I don't want to use the word just AI. There's so many different transformative technological platforms. AI is one of it. But if we started at home, they already know at the forefront. They're exposed to it. They know what's happening. And they will be in a position to pivot so much more quickly than what we are. So I really do think it starts with us, as parents, as adults, to expose our kids and the youth around us of what is there. I know SAP spoke about it, and someone else said about opportunities. Someone said, we just don't have opportunities. It's because it's shame on us, because we are not exposing the youth to the bigger world and what the world has to offer.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for our panel. Thank you very much to each of you. It is clear there are opportunities, there are challenges as well, and we need to learn how to navigate these in the landscape of the workforce design. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I believe we're going to have lunch soon, right?